Hi everyone. Hi Marie Carmen.
Hi Vic, are you all right?
I'm good, thanks. How are you today?
I'm good, thank you. So we hope you enjoyed the special last week. As we have said, these specials will make an appearance when it's impossible for us to record and release a podcast in a timely manner. It also gives you the opportunity to tell us what you want us to talk about. So if you have any ideas, please email ts12pod@gmail.com.
I'm really excited about this podcast today.
Me too.
And let me tell you a little bit about what we're going to be talking about. The main thing is confirmation bias and motivated skepticism. So we will be explaining what it is, how to avoid it, and how it relates to last week's podcast. And you don't necessarily need to have listened to last week's, but this might make a little bit more sense if you have. In a nutshell, what it is looking for and interpreting information that confirms our existing beliefs. So it's how we find the answer to things that we want to see or hear. And today we're going to explore how this affects our fitness and well-being. But before we do that, should we have a little catch up, Marie Carmen?
Yes. So, how are you?
I'm good. I've had a good week, and
What
can
have
we
you
just
been up
say
to?
it's 23 degrees outside,
It's
which is
ridiculously hot. I was just saying to you before we went on, I can't even, like, I know we're on YouTube, but I can't even bring myself to blow dry my hair. I can't stop sweating.
I had plans to have a shower before and like dry my hair and everything, and I'm covered in suntan lotion from the day's
Oh, well, I
garden
trump you because at
sitting,
least I'm clean.
so I'm saving it for afterwards.
Yeah, yeah. Because we'll probably sweat for the next hour.
Yeah, yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
so what have you been up to?
So just kind of a usual lockdown week, really. So teaching online classes. I'm absolutely loving the sunshine. It's been a gorgeous week this week, hasn't it?
Oh, it's been amazing. I mean, the weather for the whole of lockdown's been amazing.
I know. So I've been on a few runs, trained a few times, starting to really look forward to getting back into proper training when we're allowed to do that.
Yes.
Starting to do some possible planning for possible reopening of the studios. Looking forward to making hair appointments, beauty salons
Yeah.
opening, reading a few books. Yeah, that's been about my week really. Nothing
Quite a
too
chilled week
interesting.
then.
Yeah, really chilled. What about you?
Oh, lovely. Yeah, last week was quite tough actually. It was Mental Health Awareness Week, wasn't it?
It was.
And I had a bit of a bad week actually. I don't know why. Can't tell you. Don't know whether it was hormones. Don't want to blame everything on hormones, but it was a particularly weird week. So yeah, I was a bit all over the place, and I just kind of kept myself to myself, even with the kids. To be honest, I just kind of I realised that if you don't create much conversation and you don't really get that much involved, no one bothers you as much. And when I told Dean this, he was like, "Yeah, it's great, isn't it?" And I was like, "All right." But yeah, I'm all right now. I've had a much better week this week. Can't say what it was. My training was like really good. I really enjoyed my training. I feel like I'm totally back on track with training. I feel like I'm back on track with my food and stuff, like almost back to normal. But yeah, it being Mental Health Awareness Week, there was loads of kind of positive stuff going around, wasn't there? Like in regards to managing like this time with
Yeah.
Corona and stuff. And amongst all the good stuff that was about, there was one thing that I got sent, and it's a definition of the word corona coaster, which is a noun. I'm just going to tell you what it means. So it's the ups and downs of a pandemic.
I
One
like it.
day you're loving your bubble, going for long walks, baking cakes and pottering in the garden. The next you're crying, drinking gin for breakfast, eating party rings and missing people you don't even like. So that was pretty much me last week.
Love it. I bet a lot of people can relate to that right now.
Totally, because it's just so up and down, and you've got nothing to be sad for. Well, I personally don't really have anything to be sad for. Like, life is good, but it's just those ups and downs. So yeah, but this week is loads better. It's been half term with the kids. That's ridiculous because they're definitely not at school, but obviously homeschooling isn't that important during half term.
Yeah.
So that's been a bit more chilled out. And then yeah, same as you, I've been getting ready because obviously the announcements that have gone on, when did they happen?
So
There've been
was
some
it?
serious
Well,
ones this week, haven't there?
yeah. So yesterday was the one about the 6 people from Monday
Yes,
can
which
get
is
together,
amazing, yeah. And
and the
then,
week
sorry,
before
Vic.
was That's all right. What was the week before? I can't remember.
So there definitely was the announcements that some businesses will be from the 15th of July. And
June or 15th of June, isn't it?
right, yeah. And I don't know about you, but obviously you've got a studio. I read somewhere, which is really interesting to what we're going to talk about today. I read somewhere that like smaller studios, like Pilates studios and stuff, because you're almost controlling that environment a bit more than a gym, you're probably going to open sooner. And me being one-to-one and I only have one person in my gym at a time and I can clean in between, I was thinking I might come under the category of like a beautician. And they've kind of, people are kind of heading for about the same date. So I've started putting my processes in place and revamping the gym to kind of fit the new situation that we're going to be in terms of social distancing within my gym. So yeah, I've been doing that, and I've been buying loads of holiday clothes that
nice.
I just don't even know when I'm going to go on holiday, but
Are you going to be ready for it?
I'm going to be totally ready. I mean, I won't have beauty things done, but whatever. Anyway, yeah. So that's me this week. So shall we move on to the main feature of the show? So in week 2, like Vicky said, we talked about faking it until you make it. And after a bit of a catch up between me and Vic, we talked about this confirmation bias, what it means, and how we use it in fitness and currently possibly coping with COVID and lockdown. So you can still catch up on week 2's show, but it's not necessarily important if you listen to that before or after this. So don't feel like you have to turn off if you're already invested.
This will still make sense.
Yeah, we hope. So Vic, do you want to explain a little bit about what confirmation bias is?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, so confirmation bias affects our decisions and how we see the world. So it's looking for and interpreting information that confirms our existing beliefs. So a very basic example could be if somebody searching on Google, are carbs bad for me? So sure enough, that person could find plenty of information on how carbs are bad for you. They might also see information on how carbs are good for you, but they will probably disregard that information because it's not what they're looking for and it doesn't support the point of view that they're kind of coming with.
Yeah.
A different person might Google, are carbs good for me? And sure enough, they can find lots of information on how carbs are good for you and how essential they are and how much you need them. And they would probably disregard the information that they see on how carbs are bad for them because it doesn't support their beliefs.
Yeah.
So what's interesting is that neither person's right or wrong, but they've both found the answer that they were searching for because they had a belief bias towards the outcome of the question.
So in that example that you've given about carbs, the people that are looking for are they bad for me are wrong. Because they are good for you. Am I allowed to say that? Am I allowed to say that they're wrong? Do you think they're wrong?
So I love carbs and I'm here and healthy, so I would not disagree with that statement. But I think you know what? I think probably in the terms of fitness, that might not have been the best example.
No, it was a good example. Sorry, I don't mean to like.
No, but some things there are a definite answer. Like this is definitely right and this is definitely wrong. But on things where there's like a lot of middle ground, basically people probably who are looking for either of those two answers might not actually have the scientific information to prove either point or even know it, but they're going with an instinct because somebody's told them or they've heard it somewhere or they've read it somewhere, but they don't actually know why or how.
And it doesn't even matter whether or not it's fact or not, because they will see what they want to see and they will take that. So that's the whole point of it, isn't it?
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, and I think a big thing within fitness and stuff and well-being and life in general is injury. Like, how many times have you kind of got in your head, this is definitely what's wrong with me, like I've definitely got plantar fasciitis. And if my mum's listening to this, she'll be laughing her head off because this is mum googling if she has plantar fasciitis because she had it in the past and we kind of wound her up about it. She did have it, but and I think once you're clung on to that, then you will go and you will find those why you like that. But it obviously it can be quite negative as well, because
Yeah.
then if you're thinking something's seriously wrong with you and you're kind of looking for some answers that aren't necessarily right, then obviously that can be quite dangerous. But it's really interesting that our minds do that, and more interesting that there's so much stuff out there now that we can actually go. Like once upon a time, like we'd have to go to the library and get a book or
Yeah.
believe someone
Before
else.
Google.
Yeah, before
Yeah.
Google. Like, and
Yeah.
and that wasn't that long ago. Like,
No.
unless you're like 17 and listening to this, or born in the 2000s, then
Yeah. Yeah.
so yeah, it's really interesting how we do that, and how many situations we probably put ourselves in that we don't necessarily need to have put ourselves in, because we do it.
And I think like the more, as we kind of delve a little bit deeper into this, I think more people will recognise it in themselves as examples of when they might have done it, and like I say, understand a little bit more about it. So another example that maybe people can relate to, especially in terms of health and fitness. So I've got a little scenario. So, imagine that you're new to a class at the gym. You're a bit nervous, you walk in, you're feeling a little bit insecure, thinking everybody is looking at you because you don't have like what you think is the right clothes on. You're nervous about doing it wrong. So that's already like this person's mindset.
Yeah.
And as they walk in, they walk past a group of people, and they hear them laughing, and they immediately think, oh my God, are they laughing at me?
Yeah.
Because they feel like that little bit anxious before they go in. They find a spot at the back of the class. Teacher asks everyone to do something. They don't know what it is. They're looking around. Does everyone else know, or is it just me? They start doing this thing, whatever they think it is. They look up. Everyone else is doing something different. Catch the person on the next mat, hiding a smile. Immediately, oh my God, I knew it. They're all laughing at me. End of the class, leave, vow never to go back. So this is confirmation bias, because this person went into the gym, into the class, looking for the things that fitted with their insecurities, with their own beliefs about not belonging in the class. So what they did was they ignored the majority of the people in the class who were minding their own business, not looking at them. And then you know, in your brain makes stories to fit with your own idea about what's happening.
That's so interesting, because
it is, isn't it?
Because that is something that does really apply for me. Like, I like to think that I'm not a kind of Googler for Googling what's wrong with me. Obviously I do, but I come to a point where I'm like, no, I'm just going off grid here. But yeah, definitely in that respect, I do kind of, I think I do that. And
I think a lot of people do. And I'll talk a little bit about like instinct later on, and like gut instinct and feelings and things like that. But if we're talking about confirmation bias, so we also need to talk about motivated skepticism, which I mentioned in the introduction. So motivated skepticism is applying more skepticism to claims or ideas that you already don't like. So your bias is towards skepticism. So in a way, that's kind of the opposite of confirmation bias. I know it's hard to kind of get your head around. So there's confirmation bias when you look for things that fit with your own idea.
Right, yeah.
And you're trying to prove yourself right. Basically, your brain is trying to prove itself right, because that's what it does. It's like a survival instinct.
And I'm always right.
And motivated skepticism is applying more skepticism to claims that you kind of have like a little bit of a belief about that they're wrong. So I'm going to look for more ways to prove that they're wrong, because my brain needs to know that I'm right. So I'm going to prove that they're wrong. So that's motivated skepticism.
Right, that makes sense.
And you know, why would we do this to ourselves? Well, we've kind of already said it, because we don't like to be wrong. And this, because it's easier than becoming aware of our own biases and trying to work through them and evaluate the how and the why. And the really important thing to remember with this is that until you're aware of it, all this is on an unconscious level. So you're not purposely going into a class or at the gym and trying to prove yourself right or prove yourself wrong. It's all on an unconscious level until you're aware of it. So you're not consciously not wanting to be wrong, but that's the level that the brain is working at.
But then that's crazy, because then it's almost maybe too late, and like it doesn't take me much to put me off something or kind of put me in a bad frame of mind if that's already happened.
Yeah.
I feel like I need to be able to notice more when this happens, because like I think it's probably something that does happen, and probably more in my family life more than anything. It's like I kind of preempt getting stressed before I'm stressed, and then I look for things of why I should be more stressed. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's
like, and that's exactly it. And like we'll I won't go into like the kind of the conclusion just yet, because I know we're going to chat in a little bit more detail, but that's so important, and that is the first thing. So once you know, like, it's only been recently that I've kind of heard about this, and the more I read about it, the more sense I can make of it, and the more I learn about it, the more sense I can make of it. And that's the first thing. So you saying that, like, oh, actually, yeah, I think I might do this in my life, like with the kids or when I'm stressed. That's perfect, because you've become aware of it. So
but it's preempting that. It's realising before you take it too far that you're just in a stinker of a mood. You can't get out of it, and then everyone's in for hell.
Yeah. So you could even say, you know, people talk about like getting out the wrong side of bed on a morning.
Yeah.
And you get the wrong side of bed, and then you I don't know, say like you butt your toast and it falls on the floor and it's butt side down, and then you stub your toe, and then something else goes wrong, and then you can't find your car keys, and everything just spirals. Like that could be another example of it, because you're you kind of, something's gone wrong.
That's it now. You've kind of claimed it. You've named it as that. But then again, it relates to what we were talking about when we were saying you kind of own it, label it, and once you've labelled it, you're kind of searching for things to add in. Yeah, I suppose so. And I think a lot of there was another point that I was going to make, and I've totally lost it now. But
sorry, put you off track.
No, it wasn't. No, you didn't. It was definitely with COVID. That's definitely something, like I've just been saying there about talking about setting the business back up and stuff. And I'm looking for answers, and I'm looking like I saw on Instagram last week, and it was like gyms and small studios can be open from this date, and I literally was scouring the internet for this. I didn't know the person well enough to say, where did you get this from? I was just like scouring things, and I thought, even if it's like the sun, I'm going to believe it because I want to believe it. Do you know what I mean? And I was totally scouring and kind of trying to find that information and to confirm that that's what was happening. But obviously we don't know. And a lot of things when we're thinking about our health, about how COVID a lot, and I don't really want to go into it, to be honest, because I think it's created a lot of bad feeling, and it's made people think of themselves in a way that I don't believe during a time like this people should be thinking about themselves. But a lot has been put on with COVID and how healthy you are. And I don't know, it makes me sad to think that people could have possibly been Googling and trying to find whether or not they are high risk because of obesity or because they're male, or do you know what I mean? And this whole conspiracy theorist thing, and I know that we didn't want to talk about it because it's not necessarily, we don't know what's fact, we don't know enough about COVID to go into what's technically could be reasons why some people get it than others, but it's that kind of putting yourself in that situation where you probably don't want to be, but it's really interesting that it isn't on an unconscious level that you're maybe doing that, and it's a shame that we can't preempt it more, so we kind of save our mental health from believing these things too much, and you know, when it's not necessarily true.
Exactly. And what we have to remember as well is that, you know, these journalists who write articles have confirmation bias, or are coming from a point of motivated skepticism, and they are reporting on, they're looking for stories to go down a particular angle to
Yeah.
report on a particular, because it's sensational and it's clickbait,
Yeah.
and people will want to read it and want to click on it because it scares them, I guess. So, you know, there's some journalists out there who are purposely going down that that subject to try and confirmation bias to look at that subject, because they know people are going to click on it and people are going to want to read it. But there's loads of other articles or loads of other things that people are not able to read because they're not being put in the public arena.
Yeah, totally. And it just kind of, thinking on a level from fitness as well, it just, is it making you change the way you're acting and maybe pushing you in a direction that isn't necessarily a healthy one? Do you know what I mean? Like, are you looking at these things and thinking that you need to change and possibly doing it at a time when you feel forced into it rather than you should do it? But I think that's probably going too much into the COVID thing. But
Yeah.
I think not motivated skepticism, but whatever.
Confirmation bias.
Confirmation bias. I think confirmation bias is definitely in the fitness game. I think, how many times have you Googled, how many calories do I have to eat to put on? Like, how many calories will I eat before I explode? Like, and you find the right answer that you want to find. It's like, oh, it doesn't matter. What you should do is just like do this and you'll be fine. Or do you know what I mean? And you kind of like find the answers right for you. And or Googling if a food is healthy for you. Like, yeah, I would totally do that. I would totally do that. Like, find a reason why I shouldn't eat avocados because I don't actually like them, even though they're good for me. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, yeah, it is so interesting. And I think everyone can look and recognise that in themselves. Like you said, the other thing that I wanted to mention, I've remembered now, is I think that I've got a really good I think I've got quite a good, what's the word when you're good at kind of reading situations and reading other people?
Like instinct.
Yes, I've got a really good instinct for like good or bad, or if something's like a bit off, like I feel like I've got a good instinct on it. And do you think that comes into it? Like,
so yeah, it does, and it's a little bit like, so one of the things, so why don't we go into now, like we'll talk a little bit about how you can, now that we know about confirmation bias, now that you know about motivated skepticism, and you might have recognised examples in yourself, maybe you're wondering like how you can be less biased towards your own beliefs.
Yeah, I need this.
So like we said, like that is exactly the first step. So just recognising it in yourself and when you might be doing it, and know that it's like it's almost like a human, like an instinct. Like I say, we don't want to be wrong, we want to be right. And that's much more comfortable. So we kind of sometimes we run with that feeling. So, but recognise it in yourself is the very first step. Another thing you can do is just approaching things with an open mind and a degree of skepticism. So that is like a whole phrase called open-minded skepticism. So if you can approach a subject with open-minded skepticism, like that is kind of the best angle to come from. And be okay with disagreements. Like, I don't like disagreements at all, but this is like one of the key things to kind of work through it, because just listening to other points of view, like sometimes we can feel, I don't like disagreements. I'm not saying I don't like listening to other people's points of view, but how much more comfortable is it to be with people who believe the same things that you believe?
Yeah, totally.
It's much more comfortable. I find it really uncomfortable to be with people who don't believe the same things that I believe. But
yeah, and I think that's, yeah. So do you surround yourself with more like-minded people, or do you kind of challenge it? But then, yeah,
I think
a healthy balance.
Yeah, exactly, a healthy balance. I mean, you're not really going to be friends with people, like close friends with people who have completely opposing views to you that you just don't agree with at all.
Yeah.
But, you know, occasionally surrounding yourself with people who have different opinions and different points of view, you know, if everyone can respectfully put across their opinion without it being like a massive argument, that's a good way of just hearing different people's points of view, and you know, you might even come to think, well, actually, like, am I right on this subject, or is there more to it that I've just ignored because I've been so narrow-minded down this one path of this is how it's
Yeah.
done because this is how I feel comfortable with it.
Yeah, and I think I think it takes someone who also wants to learn as well. Like
Yeah.
some people you're going to meet in life that just don't want to know your way of thinking. They don't
Yeah.
want to learn. They don't want to explore different ways of thinking. They don't want to be open to other people's ways of thinking. And
Yeah.
I think it's something you learn as you get older, and as you grow up, it's something you learn more how to be, and because you
Yeah.
want to be better, you want to learn more. Well, this is my opinion. This
Yeah.
is my
No, me too.
like you want to be more open and stuff, and not so, like you said, narrow-minded.
Yeah. Yeah. And then
Saying that it's not
another
always
thing.
easy.
No. Another thing, like you've already said, it is about instincts. So exploring your instincts. Why was that your initial reaction? And like I'm a big fan of gut instincts. So like you, I feel like I can kind of read situations, read
Yeah.
people, and know what feels right and what feels wrong. But you know, we're not always right, and sometimes our reaction, what we think is a gut reaction, can come from conditioning, previous conditioning of your mind or your brain, or this is how we do things. This is we don't like somebody who does it differently to us. But the more I read about that, it's so interesting, and it could even be like a whole other podcast conversation because there's a lot of information out there about when you should listen to your gut instincts and how, in what situations you should, and situations where you should kind of be aware of how you've reacted in that situation, stop and think about it, and was that a gut instinct or was it like a conditioned instinct reaction?
Yeah.
So there's two ways of looking at it. Like I say, I really, like you, believe in gut instincts. But yeah, there's times when they're right and there's times when they're wrong, and they come from like previous conditioning.
Yeah, totally. And that's, I can see where I can probably sometimes be like that.
Yeah.
And it's not always appreciated. Yeah, because it's just not normal to not experience
you want to
that,
agree with yourself. Like that's the biggest thing. You want to agree with yourself.
Yeah, and sometimes it takes you to reflect, to sit back, reflect, and be like, oh God, yeah, maybe like, yeah.
And that literally is like the next point. So if you're really getting into this, then one thing you could do, again, there's so much information on this, is to try and prove yourself wrong.
Yeah.
Like prove your opinion wrong. And it's not easy when it's a thought or an assumption that you've held on to for a long time, to be able to go through that process. And that's why we avoid it, because it's difficult. Like it's probably not going to be enjoyable to try and prove yourself wrong when you've thought this is how it is your whole life.
That's one of the best pieces of advice that I ever got, was to challenge myself and to challenge my way of thinking, because I went through a bit of a stage in life of finding it difficult to have a balance, and I was overworking myself, I was overtraining myself, and I just could not see what I was doing wrong. I was just like on one, and I was just, it wasn't until I suppose I started to notice that certain relationships around me were breaking down that I decided to get some help, and I had some counselling. And the best thing the counsellor said to me was, challenge this routine, challenge yourself. And I remember we went camping, and it was a massive change to my routine of training kids, and my kids had a routine, like it was very regimented. And anything, I would have done anything at that point to justify why that situation was where I needed to be. And actually, by challenging myself, I realised it was a whole different situation that I needed to be in. And that was just the turning point where I realised, like, God, like, what have I been doing? Like, I needed to change, and this was too much. But nothing before that piece of advice would have changed my trail of thought, because my way was the right way. I look back now and I think it was obviously a very selfish way to think, but it was totally, I felt like it was it wasn't on my conscious level, it was just happening. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. That's such a good example of it. And like I said, I bet there's loads of other people who can put themselves in that place, and you might not even be able to think of it straight away, but just as this information like starts to sink in and get like that little bit more under the surface, you think, oh, actually, like I've done that before, and this is how, like, I'm not sciencey. at all. Never was, and probably never will be. But this is like how scientists do things. So they will come up with some kind of, I don't know, when I think science, I think school experiments.
Yeah,
you know, come up with some
burner.
kind of come up with some kind of thesis, some idea for, I don't know, because I'm not really very sciencey. Now, but they know that their conclusion is coming from confirmation bias. Confirmation bias. So how it works, kind of in the whole science realm, is that they then put it out there and say to people, "Prove me wrong."
Right.
And if people can prove them wrong, it's not obviously like a, if you can successfully prove this theory wrong, it's not a theory. If the theory stands and other scientists can't prove them wrong, it's a proven theory.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and that's exactly like how it works. So they like put it out to their peers, and it's like, prove me wrong. That's the whole.
That's mad. So there could be someone in the world that doesn't know to do that and never proves them wrong, or doesn't get in contact with them to prove them wrong, but because it's a proven theory, we all think it's real.
Yeah, exactly.
Vic, that's blown my mind. I won't believe anything I read ever again.
And there, Marie-Carmen, so exactly like what you are doing there. Hang on, I've got to get this right now because
Go on.
We've talked.
Well,
about
you're doing really well so far. It's amazing. I'm loving it.
Oh, I've lost my page. So what you have just come up, I can't even find it, but I've remembered it. It's open-minded skepticism.
Right.
So you there saying, I'm not going to believe anything that I read now. Perfect. Like, so you approach everything, and this is how we all should, me included. We should approach everything with open-minded skepticism. So we're open-minded to believe that, this could be true, but we're a little bit skeptical and think, well, where's this come from? And is there proof? Or is somebody just making this up,
right,
and talking about it? So
this is so interesting.
It is, isn't it? Like, it's fascinating.
It really is, because when we first started talking about it, when we discussed that we were going to talk about this, I was like, oh my God, so many people will relate to this, like with being in the fitness industry, with injury, with looking for like why mucking up on their new fitness regime, or or even overtraining, like why they should do it. Because overtraining was a big thing that I used to look into and research when I was overtraining, and I wanted to justify.
Wanted to prove to yourself it was okay.
I was definitely going to grow muscle, but I suppose we've got to just question it and say, like you say, like, why are we doing it? How is it useful to us? How will it help us? But the big thing, I suppose, is identifying that we're doing it in the first place.
Yeah.
Let's just hope that unconscious level gets to us before we do anything too extreme, that we're kind of gonna burst our biceps because we're training them too much.
Well, the chance would be a fine thing.
No, that's amazing. Like, it's so interesting.
It is, isn't it? And you've like literally covered like the very last point there in terms of conclusion, which is the last thing is just to approach life with curiosity and have an interest in learning. Like you said, just have that interest in learning like a little bit more. I
love it. And I think when you're at school, you think school's overdone, college is overdone, uni's overdone, like, or wherever you get to, wherever you want to finish your education. But it doesn't, like, and that's what, it's such an, I love to learn, I really do. And learning isn't just sitting and reading a book, it's listening to podcasts. It's like, I'm not saying our podcast, but but you can learn about yourself as well. And I think, please. And that's, I just love to kind of know more and to try and have different ways of thinking about things. And that's so interesting. Thanks, Vic. That's been amazing. Like, it's changed the way that I'm going to approach things. It literally, like, I'm sitting here thinking of a scenario where I got annoyed earlier, and I'm like, God, I was doing that to myself. Which I'll probably go down and explain it to Dean, and he'll go, well, yeah, I could have told you that, but I didn't dare talk to you because you're in such a rage. That's our life right now. Yeah, brilliant. Thanks, Vic. That was amazing. Thanks for explaining it so well as well. Now, do you want to move on to the next thing that you're going to explain?
I know.
I'm just saying,
doing all the explaining tonight, aren't I? Well, you're the discussion. I'm the explainer tonight. Okay, so Our next feature is Quash the BS. And today we're talking about static stretching versus dynamic stretching. So first of all, I'm going to start by saying that static stretching, which is just basically static, being still and stretching, gets a really bad rap.
Gets bad rap. Yeah.
But I actually love static stretching. It feels really good. It relaxes me. I feel better. I feel good for it. I'm going to keep doing it.
Does it stress you out though when you see people that are just about to go for a run and they've just got up at 6 o'clock in the morning and they're stood there stretching the quads? I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Don't do anything.
Exactly. That's not good. So if we're talking, like, totally right, because if we're talking about before movement, dynamic stretching wins every time.
Yeah.
So dynamic stretching, just to explain for anyone who doesn't know, is moving stretching. So taking the joints and muscles through a range of movement that is relevant, and that's probably the key word, relevant, to the movement or sport that you're preparing for. So static stretching before movement has actually been proven to temporarily decrease performance and power output. So don't do it.
And I think
before exercise.
I think it's really key there to say that you should. It's a funny thing, stretching, because it's in so many different. You can see it in so many different ways. But the main thing is to stretch to the exercise that you're about to do, really, isn't it? But, I mean, don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with just giving your back a little stretch or something like that.
No.
And you should feel free within stretch to do what you feel's right, what you feel is right for your body. I've talked about this, why I love yoga so much, because it is a kind of flow and it's how you feel within that movement. But when we're talking about doing it for a certain sport, I think a big misconception about stretching is literally like stretching the muscle to make it pliable for the exercise. That's the right word, right?
Yeah.
But actually it's more than like a warm up, and stretching is more than just preparing that muscle to move better. Like we talked about in the special, your mind and muscle connectivity is so important. And if you don't warm those muscles up and kind of get them moving, then your brain's not going to be kind of sending those signals as efficient as if it had been moving it in a way that it should have been moved 5 minutes prior to you starting your exercise.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think that's something that needs to be taken into consideration. And as well, I think some people just literally don't stretch the right muscles for the exercise that they're about to do. It's hard because it's in our heads. We know how to do it. We know how to do these things, and we feel like it's quite straightforward that everyone else will know that. But actually, you know, like, it's not in everyone's heads. And I think it's simple things like, if you're going for a run, like, go for a gradual warm-up. So go from a steady jog and increase slowly to the pace that you intend to run at. And then once you're warm and, you know, you're feeling a bit looser, then even things like leg swings or going into some walking lunges will warm up those muscles that you are about to use. And it'll kind of create that mind-muscle connectivity to get those muscles engaged and to kind of say, right, this is what you're using, brain, go for it. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's creating that clear pathway is just as important as kind of making that muscle warm and ready for it.
Yeah, absolutely. Because like you say, you know, you're preparing your mind for movement as well as your body as well.
Yeah.
You've got that mind-body connection.
And I think everyone now knows that we totally believe in that.
Yes.
So yeah, I would definitely say dynamic stretching is the way forward. And just, it's more enjoyable. It's more, well, I think so personally. I just think it flows better. You keep it on moving, especially if you're going into cardio. You can keep your heart rate up high and keep that heart rate where it needs to be for your main session. So, yeah.
Less chance of injury.
Definitely. Yeah, of course. Always need to know that one. I feel like we've been really quick tonight. Like, we've kind of like talked about everything, but we haven't talked for long. I feel like I could stay for another 2 hours.
Oh, we're not finished yet.
We're not. So, should we talk about our wishful sponsor?
Yes.
Go for it, Vic. You again.
Okay, I'll go again. Okay, so I've got one today that maybe you might not expect. So I have, during lockdown, so I have this kind of, if you're watching on the YouTube show now, you'll see me in my little study. It's not really that interesting, but I'm at my desk and this is where I work. But I've come to think of this as my winter workspace because gets the sun in the winter. So I've been sitting downstairs. This is a very long story to explain the wishful sponsor, sorry. I've been sitting downstairs at the dining room table to do my work, do my admin stuff during the day. And I thought, I'd like a bit of radio, but sometimes too much music and talking distracts me when I'm trying to work. So we've got a digital radio in the kitchen, and I've discovered Scala radio. I don't quite know how I discovered it. So it's
I've never heard of this.
So it's like a classical music radio. I'll tell you how I discovered it, because Simon Mayo, who used to like listening to on Radio 2 Drive Time, moved to Scala Radio after Radio 2, so I thought, I'll just listen to Scala Radio because I like Simon Mayo, but I didn't realise it was a classical radio station. But now it's my radio station of choice when I'm doing work, because they just play lots of like classical music, piano music, music from films, and it's just like a nice, I have on quite low, it's like a nice bit of background noise.
Yeah.
And I remember when I was doing my GCSEs, me and my friends at school, we used some of my friend's dad's classical music CDs because we'd heard that it helped you study better as well.
God, you were a good kid, Vic.
We practiced revising to classical music because apparently it's meant to help your brain. So that's my wishful sponsor.
Did you get good GCSEs?
Yeah, I did. Yeah,
obviously, she did amaze.
So that's my wishful sponsor today. Scala Radio on digital. You should give it a go.
I love it. I listen to TV all the time.
Too distracting for me.
No.
I'd end up not working and just watching it.
See, I think I'm so much more productive if I'm multitasking.
Oh,
I found this about myself. I found that like I can get, like, even if I'm doing work on a computer, I literally have my iPhone with my headphones and I'm watching a program while I'm doing it, and I'm so much more productive. Yeah, because I think it's that thing of like doing something you want to do with something that you don't necessarily want to do. What you mean. Not that I don't want to do work, but
it feels like it's not work as much if you're doing something else.
Yeah, and so I train while watching TV as well because I just think less. I think, I don't know. It's probably not a good thing. I probably need to focus on one thing at a time and just give my brain a bit of a rest.
So what about you? What's your wishful sponsor this week?
Oh, do you know what?
Have you got one?
There's probably like a lot of TV programmes that I could do. There's this Apple TV. Have you got Apple TV?
Yeah, have we? I'm not sure.
I'm pretty sure that I haven't signed up to a subscription. I don't have
a subscription, but we've got it, yeah.
But it works, it works without paying for it. So I think I haven't paid anything for it. I should maybe check my bank because I don't want to pay for another one. And I've been watching something called Trying, which is about a couple that can't have children through IVF, so they end up adopting. And it's a really lovely kind of comedy based around all that. It's really good.
Is it real life or is it like a fictional?
No, it's fictional, but they live in London and it's just a different world, isn't it, to like up north. Like they live in this tiny flat that's probably worth millions of pounds. But it's really good to watch, really nice. It was really nice, easy watching.
Aww.
Cool. HelloFresh, we ordered HelloFresh off your recommendation.
Yep.
And we got it for mega cheap, so that's coming tomorrow. So I'm really looking forward to that.
Yet?
No, tomorrow's Saturday. So it's Friday today, it's Saturday. Yeah, it's coming tomorrow. And so I'm really looking forward to that because I definitely do better when I've got a really nice tea to look forward to. Like if I've got a rubbish tea planned, I'm just like, I just give up on healthiness. Whereas if I've got something really nice planned, like I kind of don't want to fill myself up on anything because I really want to enjoy that tea.
Save yourself for it.
Yeah, I want to save myself for it.
Nice.
So I would say those things are my wishful sponsors. Obviously, I'd love to be sponsored, but imagine if we were sponsored by HelloFresh and we got free food.
Amazing.
I would literally be a millionaire because, well, maybe not a millionaire, but if I didn't spend money on food, I'd be loaded.
Well, actually, I think I've got another HelloFresh coming tomorrow as well. Can't wait. I've still got one to cook as well, one left.
Yeah, I feel a bit bad on my butcher actually. I'm going to put an order in for just some sausages and stuff just to.
Oh, I've chose the vegetarian HelloFresh just for
sorry, yeah.
change.
Or
I'll
just
still eat meat,
yeah.
just not HelloFresh at the moment, anyway.
Just how I'm feeling.
Yeah.
You go, girl.
Now, you are going to talk about our happy grand finale today, aren't you?
Yeah, we have. Whether or not we've made a point of talking about COVID, I don't know, but we haven't really talked about COVID until today, have we really?
Not really.
I don't think we've mentioned it apart from how it affects our everyday lives. But basically, we can't mention COVID without thanking and mentioning our NHS and all the key workers. So yeah, my happy grand finale is just to say a thank you. And I do feel a bit bad because when Wilder ate my contraceptive pill, I missed the clap and I felt bad about that. And I missed the one last night because I was driving back from seeing a client.
Last night was the last one, you know.
I know, and I was driving back from seeing a client and I should have stopped at the side of the road, but I just didn't think. That's awful. So I want to say thank you.
I clapped
and
for you last night, Marie Carmen, so...
I think I've just like turned the sound off with my loud clap.
Don't do that.
Yeah, so just thank you, the teachers. Our teachers have been amazing, so I imagine everyone else has been. The nurses, doctors, all of those who work behind the scenes that aren't seen. Supermarket workers, I mean, like, God, their job's changed, hasn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, everyone's job's changed, but yeah. So thank you, and you're all amazing, and you all are heroes, and you've got us through all this, so yeah.
And I second that. Well said, Marie Carmen.
So it was the last clap for carers, was it?
Yeah, I think so. Last night, yep.
Because I'm worried it's going to get too political. Is that right?
Yeah. So they're stopping it while it's on a high, I think.
When I was watching it, because I've stopped watching the news as much really because, yeah, it was getting too much. And when I was watching the last speech with Boris Johnson, and he was kind of saying, I can't expect our scientists shouldn't have to shouldn't have to answer questions with political views. Did you see? Oh, you've only seen the speech?
No, I didn't see
brilliant. It was all about the trip to Durham.
Yeah, Barnard Castle.
And and he was basically saying this is political, this is medical, blah blah blah. Yeah, quite funny. But yeah. So it's quite sad that it's come to an end, but it's been amazing, and I love how every week it's got louder and louder.
Yeah,
and
it's been great, hasn't it?
Yeah, and they deserve it. They really do.
Absolutely.
So thank you, and sorry for missing some of the claps, but I really do love you all.
Aww.
And thank you all. So next week,
sure.
Yes. So next week we will be discussing if those who train together stay together. It's hilarious because the way that me and Dean are, but you'll find about that next week. We're also going to explore how our emotional intelligence affects our well-being and how many of us use exercise in fight or flight after an argument, a stressful day at work, or with kids, for example. So I'm looking forward to exploring my emotional intelligence. Do you know what? After this, me and Dean are going to sit down and have our tea, and I'm going to get him to do some of the quizzes online. That's what I'm going to do.
Yeah, you should.
Yeah.
You should.
And discuss his thoughts on those who train together stay together. So yeah, that's what we're going to talk about next week, guys. Yeah. Before we go, Vic, what you having for your tea?
So I'm hoping when I go downstairs to the kitchen that there is one half of a HelloFresh meal that I made at lunchtime.
Okay, we need to say, before we started recording the podcast, there was a really hilarious moment where Vicky was telling a partner how to prepare this, and I was just like, what?
So I'll tell you what it is. It's so I'm hoping this. I've already eaten half of it at lunchtime. The other half is downstairs, but he's going out for his tea, so I'm hoping he's left it. But knowing him, he's probably eaten it as well. So it's a toasted like brioche bun. It's roasted aubergine in soy sauce and what is it called?
Ginger.
What's the Japanese healthy miso paste? Yeah. So it's all mixed in with that with sesame seeds, and then there's homemade satay sauce on top of it, which was peanut butter, sweet chili sauce, and something else mixed in.
That's a really easy. Sorry, go on.
Yeah, no, yeah, it was a really easy way of making it. Yeah,
Yeah.
I thought that. And then pickled cucumber on top of that. And then the salad was lettuce, the rest of the cucumber, lime juice, olive oil, salt and pepper. Anyway, it was and sesame seeded roasted wedges. It's absolutely delicious. I'm hoping that's what's waiting downstairs for me if it's not gone.
Yeah, that's a really easy, that's the satay sauce that I do, because Dean is allergic to nuts, so we don't really eat stuff like that. But satay sauce, peanut butter, bit of hot water, boiling water, and sweet chili sauce, mix it together.
Yes, hot
It's
water.
a really easy.
There was something else that went in it as well, but I can't remember
Bit
what it
chili?
was. No, it was the sweet chili sauce, the a little bit of water, the
Maybe a bit of soy or
peanut
something?
butter. Yeah, maybe it was soy. Yeah,
Yeah, it's
I'll
a
have
really
look at the
nice,
recipe and let you know.
easy satay sauce, that.
Yeah, yeah.
Delish. And
So-
as well, you could get dehydrated peanut. Have you seen that? It's like a peanut butter powder and you mix it with water. I told one of my clients.
I have seen it. I saw
Yeah.
it in like the big Tesco Superstore. It's the only place I've ever seen it.
Yeah, it basically,
For taking on holiday. That's what I thought.
it takes out all the fat out of the nuts. So you're left with this. But then I told my
like the
client to
fat.
try it once and she was just like, that is the grossest thing I've ever tasted. But if you're using it for sauces like that, you could save yourself a few calories. Or you could just have less of the real thing and taste amazing.
Yeah, I love peanut butter too much. What are you having for your tea?
Oh, well, we are having a cheese board. Have you seen all these since lockdown? People are doing.
I haven't had one yet.
Yeah,
but they
well, we
look
get ours
nice.
from Feed and Flourish, and she delivers. But we went and picked it up today because Dean's at work. She's delivering in Saltburn on Saturday night, but yeah, we couldn't get it for Saturday night because Dean's at work Sunday, so he wanted to enjoy it tonight. So we're going to have that, and it's so like, the amazing thing about it is the pairings of the flavours that she puts together. Like, me and Dean just sit there like mind blown. Anyway, we're going to have that and do some relationship quizzes.
Emotional intelligence.
Yeah, after a couple of glasses of wine. How will that go? Tune in next week to find out
That sounds like fun.
if we're divorced or not. Yeah, so that's what we're having.
Real. So over to the thank yous now for the podcast. So thanks again to Cade, wonderful Cade, for editing the podcast. And of course, Marie Carmen's already mentioned, to the amazing NHS workers and key workers who've kept us all going through the coronavirus pandemic.
And thanks to you, Vic, as well, for explaining things so well tonight.
Oh, that's all right.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
So thanks for listening, guys. We hope you enjoyed today's show. If you have any questions or ideas about what you want us to talk about, then please get in touch to ts12pod@gmail.com. Have a great guys.
You're doing so well.
7 p.m. I've had a long day with kids. Have a great week. Yes, have a great week and stay safe. And thank you for listening to me get quite a lot wrong tonight.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Bye now.
Bye.
Bye. Smashed it.